Hello there, welcome to GameByte. My name's Brett Claxton.
I'm Vicky Wainwright.
And we are talking about Outriders today. Outriders is a new game by Square Enix, developed by People Can Fly, who made, obviously, Bulletstorm and all that jazz. They didn't make all that jazz, that's a very old film.
There we go, you made it like 30 seconds in and we're already on a tangent. Great.
So, what are we seeing right now in the gameplay, Vicky? Can you remember this part?
Yeah, so this is like a sort of mini boss fight, I suppose. So we did a demo of the game going from the start, and this is basically the end result of a side quest that we decided to take, where we're basically just going and beating up some guy who's like us and has the powers but just is not a nice person. I think he's the guy who at the start tried to beat us up before he realised that we had powers.
Yeah, he is. I remember that's one thing I really liked about the side quest, is it was a case of, I thought it'd be a major sort of story arc, but instead it was just sort of a, oh, by the way, a side quest will also carry on stories. It shows the importance of side quests.
It's not just a quest for the sake of it. It still had some form of relevance to the main plot, which was kind of nice.
Which I really liked. And also, as you can see here, we're splitting between both two different viewpoints because we both played the game.
Yeah. As of right now, there's 3 different classes. There's the Pyromancer, which is the one that's doing all the fiery stuff. They're basically like a mid-range DPS who tends to keep a distance, but they do have like spells and stuff they can use for when they get closer, or abilities I should say. We've also got the Trickster, which is the one in all the blue light. They are close range, but they're very much hit and run.
Yeah.
So they will like teleport in behind enemies like that, and then they can melee them as well for more damage and such things, and they can also stop time, slow it down, make it easier for you to shoot your targets if you get overwhelmed.
And also make some very cool sort of practical effects when that is happening.
Yeah, especially when you combo up some of the other abilities as well from the different classes. And then there's also the Enforcer, and he's like the main tank role. They kind of like manipulate Earth, I suppose, and they're just there to soak the damage basically and do stuff at close range.
Yeah.
The 4th class hasn't been revealed yet. That's a to be announced thing for later in the year.
And in terms of the game, I got to play as the Earth tank guy. That's what I'm going to refer him to.
The Enforcer.
The Earth tank guy and the fire dude.
Yeah. I was the fire dude, and also, what would you call the other one?
Tricky Trick.
Tricky Trick. I was also Tricky Trick. So between us, we had a good variety of the roles.
Yeah.
There will be some gameplay of the Enforcer later, because at the moment it's just flicking between Pyromancer and Trickster. There's a final boss fight at the end of the video, and we've also got some footage of the Enforcer in that fight.
Yeah. But I think what I found most interesting about this, so I've played quite a lot of these sort of RPG class-based stuff where you go about doing things, but it felt that you really needed to work together and make all your skills actually work together.
Yeah, because how it works is basically you can have up to 3 abilities at the time, which are those 3 little icons in the middle at the bottom. You can swap and change them, and you can actually swap and change them during the battles, which I did a couple of times, but not while they're on cooldown. They have to be off cooldown to swap them. You gain more as you level up, but because you can basically have any combination of abilities once you've unlocked them, the devs really wanted to stress about how, like, you know, if you're playing this with 2 of your friends and everyone's arguing over who gets to be the Pyromancer, you technically all can be and still be kind of different.
Yeah.
But despite that, because we were quite fortunate enough that us 2 and the guy we got paired with for the free player thing, we all happened to pick different classes.
Without even talking to each other.
We all just wanted to play different ones, which never happens, let's be honest. But the 3 classes available at the moment really did sync quite well with each other, didn't they? Because the Trickster could go in, freeze time, and then the Pyromancer can just like literally set everyone alight.
I think that the one concern I have from this, and obviously we didn't get to experience it at the event, is I just don't think it would work single player.
Yeah, so like it's supposed to be able to. It's a single player experience in which co-op can drop in and out as you progress along the storyline. But it's very much one of those games, from what we played at least, that you're going to have a really good time if you play it with friends, but it's not going to be an amazing experience when you play it alone. I'm also not sure how like difficulty scales, because we pretty much just only played it co-op. We don't know whether or not like the enemies are easier to take down or there was a difficulty setting, like an overall world difficulty that gradually increased the further you got, but you can also change it yourself. So maybe they just leave it up to you to decide that.
I think it will be a case like you'll get a few less enemies. That's how these tend to work if you do it single player. But I just don't think it would be very enjoyable. Everything that I enjoyed about playing the game came from like either being the Pyromancer and setting them up so when you shot them they exploded into a sort of bomb thing that would then do damaging effects, and then timing that into what you see here, so like the Trickster bubble that slows them down. It looked really cool. But I just think if you lose the collaboration, it will become a bit less interesting to play through.
It kind of lowers the stakes as well, I would imagine, playing alone, because like later on in the video, you'll see there's a point where basically everyone else has gone down, and I was the only one who was left alive, and I was stuck, kind of like pinned against the back of the map. It's going to be this fight, I think. Being like, oh, well, do I go and risk trying to revive my teammates, or do I try and fight this off myself until I get an opening to do so? Which I did for a while, and in the end I kind of realised that it just wasn't sustainable to keep on going, so I just had to take that chance and run and just hope for the best and revive my teammates, and that was quite thrilling. Yeah. Which you would completely miss out on if you were playing alone.
Well, I think it is the thing, it's like, it very much seems the single player is there because it has to be there. And you know, I'm glad it is there. But from what we've played, the best experience, you've got to get a few friends who are also going to want to get involved in this.
Yeah, the best way to play this is probably like play it with your friends as much as you can. It's not the end of the world if you want to do like a mission or something without them because they're not around or anything. That's fine. The game will let you do that. But yeah, it's definitely play it with friends. But this is the bit I was talking about where. Everyone else is knocked and I'm just here trying to up my health. Because the other thing that we haven't mentioned yet is there are no healer classes, at least not at the moment. Because what the devs have done is they've made it so that each class has their own self-healing, which you get by taking part in combat, basically. So the Pyromancer regains health if they set fire to an enemy and then they kill them, or that enemy goes down while the fire effect is still in place. The Trickster and the Enforcer get health by being in close proximity to someone who dies. So it's very much you're in the action all the time, and you have to keep being in the action in order to keep upping your health. You can't run kind of like that too much, because if you do, then you've got no way of getting any health back.
But that's why it's great as well, because it encourages you to play to the style it is, and that's what I think it's got above maybe some of the other games in the genre, because obviously that's the other thing. Outright, it seems like a cool game, but also in terms of what it does differently to other games, it's hard to sort of say clearly. Like, I think the key thing is it generally does feel great when you're playing as three different people because all your skills work together really well, which I don't think Borderlands and Destiny and similar have done that as well.
Yeah.
I suppose most comparatively in the third person sort of action RPG space, I suppose Division's the main one that you could compare it to. This is much more fluid, as you can sort of see by the movement. If anything, it's maybe a touch too floaty.
I guess, like, I like the way that you can find combos between your abilities. Like, this is me playing right now, and you can see that my first ability is like a bullet thing, and that was a new ability that I got that I switched in to try it out, in which it basically empowers your bullets for so many shots or until like a timer has gone out. I can't quite remember. But I replaced that. So I replaced like a melee thing that you kind of hit with like a sword or something similar at close range for that. And I kept finding myself teleporting in like this and then wanting to use that ability but realising I didn't have it anymore. So I, later on in the fight, will go behind cover and change back to it, because I found a combo that worked for me and that fit my play style, and you know I can keep that. Whereas if, for example, you're someone that just prefers to keep your distance but you still like the kind of like trickstery rolls, they've still got abilities there for that, which I thought was a really nice way to do it. There's different ways to play the classes.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's...
And it's not just a gimmick, it does work from the abilities we got to try as well.
And it is something that obviously we do see in other action RPGs that push it, but looking through the skill trees, there did seem like there'd be quite a lot of ways you can fine-tune it. And you sort of have to, when you pick who you pick, you have to stick with them, because you can't then change class, which is a bit annoying. but it's expected in these games, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose maybe that the game will let you have like multiple characters on multiple saves that you could probably drop in and out of on your friends' saves, maybe.
Yeah, you'd imagine so. And
There you
obviously
go.
that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, this is changing the abilities. At this point, I had 4 unlocked, and I just swapped the very first one back in because I much preferred it.
But that's a good thing as well. That the fact that you can do that on the fly and just like get used to it.
Yeah, the fact that you can still do it in combat, provided it's not on cooldown, or else that would be OP. As well. So like if you find yourself in a fight where like you have to keep your distance even though you're not really supposed to as the Trickster, there's an ability there that you can switch to that's going to help you take down those enemies that are far off, kind of like here, and then you can go back to going close range again.
Yeah. And it feels like it's a very interesting project for People Can Fly to do. Obviously they did Gears of War Judgment, I want to say is the Gears of War they did. And they also Bulletstorm was obviously very much fast action, first person. This is, I suppose it's kind of fast action, but it's still not exactly really fast.
It's bursts. So, like, because it's quite RPG focused as well, there's, like, a period of downtime where you're, like, talking to NPCs and, like, finding out what you need to do next and just, like, world building, essentially. Then you're immediately thrown into stuff like this, and then it's broken up again, and it's quite sort of, like, highs and lows, which is quite nice, actually.
Yeah,
I quite like that.
I think I generally enjoyed it. We played through twice.
Yeah,
doing
we
the
did.
side quest the second time, and like I would happily come back and play this again. This is the boss fight right now, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the final boss fight of the demo that we played. This one was a lot more difficult than the first one that we opened up with. That was the side quest, because this one actually had stages to the boss, which we had to figure out like how to counter. Because this for the most part is the second time we did the boss fight. It's kind of mixed in with the first time because, as I said, we played the 3 classes between the 2 runs that we did, and I've added the Enforcer into this boss fight to kind of show off what it does. So that when the Enforcer's on screen, that's the first boss fight, and all the rest is the second.
Yeah,
But
the important thing about, and this is the thing, like we figured it out sort of quite near the end of the boss fight, but the Enforcer seemed to have a move that made you sort of needed to use on the boss fight, which yet again ties into what we're saying. The game, you have to sort of work together with these classes. It's hard to sort of see how well it will work without working together as a team. But then it's great that they're encouraging teamwork, because some games it's just a case of you're a different class but you do different abilities, that's it. Whereas the Enforcer has to do a specific attack to stop a regen.
yeah, and I think they tweaked it as well so that whereas normally for the Pyromancer, you would gain health for killing enemies. Obviously you can't really do that here, so it's more a case of like you gain it back for doing damage while they're alight and such.
That was me just trying to be a bit too over the top, I think. Although it didn't do
Yeah,
bad.
this right now, this is the Enforcer.
Yeah, and that was because he's a tank. One of his moves was that he could basically shield himself in earth and make himself sort of invulnerable for a brief period of time. So he's great for getting up close and smashing people in the face, really.
I see. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense now, because that's the one role that I didn't try playing, so I wasn't quite sure how it worked.
And it was a case of like, because when you did that, you also sometimes take more damage if you're up close to them. So if you're up close dealing damage, you'll then get health back. So you're encouraged to put on your shield, go in close to then get your health back.
I remember in the first fight as well, it got to a point sort of about halfway through where we would all like run out of ammo, so we were just there shooting with our pistols until one of us realised, hey, there's a supply cache over here, and we were just like, how did none of us see that? But at the same time, I kind of like that the game just didn't make that too obvious. You had to discover it.
Yeah.
I don't like games that hold your hand too much, and this doesn't really do that, which is good.
And you can see here as well, like I suppose we haven't really made a big deal out of the cover shooting element. I didn't really find the cover shooting that effective. It helped.
Yeah, like, so there is a whole like cover system where you can like actually go up properly against cover and things, and that's good when you have fights that are against like set enemies and set positions and you're kind of like advancing. There was a few missions like that, but in times like this where there's just like lightning going across the whole entire field, cover just becomes less of a, it's probably better we just like hit and run rather than try and find cover that's probably going to last for the next 5 seconds until the lightning comes up again. So but I guess that's another good thing, like the fights were different.
And that's it, like no one battles felt the same. Like there was one time, a tiny bit earlier on, I don't think we saw all the angles of, but we were basically being held by snipers for a while. And it's nice that the enemies seem to act a bit differently every time as well. It's a very interesting game. It needs to do, it's coming to PS4, Xbox One, PS5, and Xbox Series X and PC. It's interesting. If it comes out near launch, obviously on PS5 and Xbox Series X, then it could be the perfect sort of, almost like Destiny was. Destiny was maybe not the groundbreaking game we had hoped for, but it was a good enough action RPG sort of element that you could go and have some fun with.
Kickstarted the genre on the new one, yeah.
Oh yeah, it did. And like this could be a game that does that on this. There's lots of customization we've not really touched upon as well, so you get lots of armor, you get different weapons.
Yeah, all of which you can like buy within the game with like the money you get from quests and things.
Yeah.
And you can also find it and loot it. We did quite a lot of that.
Yeah, and there's lots of nice different bits and pieces to do, and you can make the classes how you want. It is very much class-based action RPG. It's similar to probably what you have seen many times before, but obviously in a new world. And it's nice to at least see a new IP getting made and being pushed by someone like Square Enix.
Especially when at the moment in the gaming scene there seems to be a lot of focus on sequels. It is really nice to see like a new IP in a genre that's not super common. Like co-op shooters are, but good RPG co-op shooters, there's not really that many.
Yeah, that's the thing, because I personally prefer third person to first person, and apart from The Division, there's not loads that you can do this level of customization with, and we really haven't had the chance to be able to show it in this video, but you can get so much great bits and pieces from doing this. It's like there's so much customization that is there to have.
Yeah.
And I think we're near the end of the fight now. Although I keep getting... One thing I do want to point out, even though we get knocked down a lot, we never died. None of us died, which was a proud point, I think, from gaming cred.
I do like the system of like just being able to, so long as you don't get a full party wipe, you can res your friends and things. I don't know whether that changes on higher difficulty, because I think by this point we were on like world difficulty 4 or 5. You start out at 1, and I think it goes on and on. I don't know what the cap on that is, but
it's an interesting game. It's not setting the world on fire from what we've seen. It's good, and that is definitely like a positive for it. It's a very good game.
It's very early days yet.
Yeah.
So obviously this is the first time like gameplay footage and stuff has come out for the game, and I'm excited to see where it goes and where it progresses and what they change and what they add and what the new class is going to be and such. The story seems interesting enough as well. Yeah,
and you can see that that's why they wanted to preview the event like this, where it's a case of just sit down, play a couple of hours of the game, because it's the sort of game that I don't think demos well in a 30-minute slice, because the intro was actually quite boring that we weren't able to show. Not boring is not the right word. But
maybe if you just want to get straight into the action.
Yeah,
but
it is not an interesting thing to show you sort of thing. It's interesting to play, it's just not necessarily... It's setting up all the lore and everything. It's a bit, as you expect from the start of an RPG, just sort of like setting up everything that's happened in this world, which is Earth's basically ruined, and they're going to this different planet. But the twist is the planet's got some weird electrical anomaly stuff, and bam, you get superpowers.
Most people die, but you get superpowers, along with a few other people, like this guy included.
Yeah, and it is just sort of a case of going back into it. The only thing I found weird is you keep getting referred to as the last Outrider, despite the fact that it's a multiplayer game with multiple Outriders.
Yeah, it very much seems like the story is geared towards, it's like it's single player, but your friends can join if you want to.
Yeah.
That narrative did get kind of confusing because of that, because in some cutscenes as well, you and your friends are in them, and then others you're not.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really a consistency there. I don't know whether or not that's going to change, or whether it'll become more clear as a full game. But yeah,
it was fun though, because I even asked Devastator about it. It's like people can fly and make quite fun and hammy games that do silly things while still having a serious edge, and they definitely did that in this here. There's lots of nice little humour bits dropped in with a serious sci-fi story also there. At times a bit hammy in the acting, but it was still an enjoyable sci-fi romp, like comparative to stuff like Starship Troopers, whilst also being comparative to more serious sci-fi.
Yeah, and another thing we didn't mention is your characters are customizable in like their appearance, not just the gear as well. You get to choose that at the start, which is good.
I tried to make Geralt at one point, but failed miserably.
Yeah, I thought you did. Anyway, we're pretty much coming to the end of this now.
Yeah, I've been Brett from GameByte.
And I've been Vicky from GameByte.
You've been wonderful. Make sure to like and subscribe. But until next time, goodbye.